Hello, Dr. Jane Goodall.
Good morning.
Well, it's really amazing to see you. My heartbeat is going faster and faster, more than before. So please, Regie, the first video before we start with Jane.
In 1960, a young British woman ventured into the forests of Africa to follow her childhood dream, to find a way to watch free wild animals living their own undisturbed lives. She left everything familiar behind and ended up giving the world a remarkable window into our closest living relatives. She was me. I wanted to come as close to understanding animals as I possibly could. We are continuing our research at Gombe. It's the longest running study of any non-human animal. And we're using some exciting new technology to learn more about chimpanzee ranging patterns and the state of the forest. And this helps to inform decision makers on action to be taken to protect chimpanzees, their habitats, and the other creatures that live there. I flew in a small plane over Gombe National Park, and I was absolutely horrified at what I saw. So quickly, it seemed, the environment outside the national park had been utterly destroyed. The trees had gone. The land was over-farmed and infertile. They were struggling to survive. And that's when I realized that unless we helped the people to improve their lives, there was no way we could even try to save the precious chimpanzees. This was when we started Take Care or Tukari, our community-centered conservation project. Everywhere I went, I met young people who seemed to have lost hope. They all said more or less the same thing. We feel like this because we think you've compromised our future. And so that led into our program for youth, Roots and Shoots. The main message of Roots and Shoots is that every one of us makes a difference every single day. The program has now become a movement that's in 100 countries around the world. One of the things that the Jane Goodall Institute does that I feel is really most important is to try and give people hope, to help people understand that every single day we live, we can make a difference. And together, with everybody making a difference, we can change the world.
Thank you. So, my dear colleagues, my dear friends from the CLUB55, today we are honoring a remarkable person, a woman with outstanding achievements, not only for animals, but also for us humans, especially for children and also for the environment. And we all know her as a chimpanzee researcher, but she is far more than that. And I want to take you on a journey with Jane through her life and welcome in your home, in your family's home in Bournemouth, UK. So you're live here connected with us. I really appreciate it. And it's really amazing to have you here, Dr. Jane Goodall. Please applaud. Dr. Jane Goodall, my first question is the important question. May I say Jane?
You please do say Jane. I'm
Thank
Jane.
you, Jane. Thank you, Jane. I love this. I'm really impressed about you and your work in the last 60 years. And when I think in my childhood, I was really impressed by observing the animals. And I also observed animals, and now I observe people's behavior, but I'm more into consumer behavior. I think it's not so necessary as that what you do. But I love it. I love your life's work, and I keep thinking, wow, it's really amazing what you have managed to build up and change over the last 60 years is really enormous. But there's one question maybe we have to ask first. I'm asking myself a very long time, why chimpanzees?
Well, I was born loving animals, all animals. I spent my childhood right where I am now. This is our family home in Bournemouth, and watching birds and insects and so on. And so when I finally saved up and got to Africa, which had been my dream from age 10, to go and live with wild animals and write books about them in Africa. And I met Louis Leakey, my mentor. He's the one who suggested chimpanzees. He suggested chimpanzees because he spent his life searching for the fossilized remains of Stone Age humans. And of course, you can tell a lot from bones about whether the creature walked upright, from muscle attachments, the wear on the teeth, the sort of diet they had, but behavior doesn't fossilize. So he reckoned 6 million years ago, there was an ape-like, human-like creature, and it led on the one hand to humans, and on the other to chimpanzees and the other apes. So he reckoned if Jane finds behavior similar or maybe the same in modern chimpanzee and modern human, maybe that came all the way back from that common ancestor. And we brought it with us on our separate evolutionary pathways. So that, he said, would give him a better feeling for how early humans might have behaved.
Mm-hmm. How many percent DNA do we have in common with the chimps?
With the chimps, it's 98.6% of the structure of DNA. And the geneticists say the difference is more in the environmental expression of the genes than in the actual composition of the genes themselves.
I think this is important and very interesting, and we come to it at a further point of this interview. I really love another story of your childhood. Maybe you can share your Tarzan and Jane story with us, because I think it's really amazing and I love it.
Yes, well, when I was growing up, there was no TV. It hadn't been invented. And so I relied on books and actually being in nature. That was the best part, but books. I loved books. And I was 10 years old when I had saved up just enough pocket money. It was during World War II. Everything was rationed. We had very little money. And so I used to save up my few pennies of pocket money. And on this day, in this little secondhand bookshop, I found a small book, and it was Tarzan of the Apes. I bought it and brought it home, climbed up my favorite tree, which is still here, and read it from cover to cover. And of course, I fell passionately in love with this glorious Lord of the Jungle. And what did Tarzan do? He jolly well married the wrong Jane. I think he did.
I did. He did indeed. I think it's amazing because it's really a love story you had in your childhood, and it has turned into a worldwide movement. Would you have ever have guessed that this would happen?
Of course not. I mean, how could I? I mean, nothing could have been further from my mind, and I didn't ask for what's happened. It just sort of happened. It seems that every stage in my life led to the next. All I had to do was to make the right choice if the ways branched. And it seems that I did, and here I am now.
Yes, that's amazing. So Doris said before, in the last 60 years, 30 Jane Goodall institutes came up worldwide on every continent on this planet. And maybe the Regie can show us the video of the institutes. You can show Jane too, please. I want to talk to her just in the background. Yes, thank you. This is a little animation. So you can see here, it started 1977 in the USA, where the first institute came up. Jane, what are the main focuses of the Jane Goodall Institutes? What is it about, and what was the first institute in the USA about?
Well, right at the beginning, when this first institute was created, and they said, what's it going to be for? Research with the chimps. But I said, no, it's got to be more than that. I mean, that's way back when I said that. I said, no, it's got to include other apes and possibly other animals too. It's got to include conservation, and it's got to include education. And so our mission is to make the world a better place for people, animals, and the environment.
Mm-hmm. For me, it's also interesting, how do you gather all these people around you? Did it come up that you say, I need people, I want to build up an institute on another continent, or do the people come up to you and say, Dr. Jane Goodall, can I work with you? How does it happen that so many institutes came up in the last 30 years?
Well, when I started this Takari program, that was in 1994, and by then I was traveling around the world raising awareness about environmental issues and also trying to raise money, because starting Takari cost a lot of money. And that's when I began meeting young people who were depressed or apathetic because we were destroying their environment. That's when I started Roots and Shoots. Mm-hmm. But as I was traveling around, wherever it seemed I could raise some money from a lecture, you know, I was meeting people. And so it was partly meeting somebody in another country who said, well, I want to start that here. It often begins with Roots and Shoots and then turns into a full-blown Jane Goodall Institute. So it's a mixture of me, you know, hoping, like there's countries now where I hope we can get Roots and Shoots going, countries like Russia and Palestine and Pakistan, where I think Roots and Shoots would be really, really helpful because it's changing young people's lives. They tell me so.
Mm-hmm. Roots and Shoots is a very interesting project. As I said, it's 30 years now this year. You have the anniversary of Roots and Shoots. And how did it came up? So what was the first impulse? So we can see here on the map the different countries, and you say it's more than 100 countries yet, where you have this Roots and Shoots projects?
It's been in 100, but you know, in some of the smaller island nations, it starts up and then maybe the leader moves on or dies or something. Mm-hmm. So in some of the countries, it's kind of lying dormant, ready to start again. Right now, it's really active in 68 countries, and it's growing all the time. And it started because, you know, when these young people said, well, you've compromised our future and there's nothing we can do about it. Mm-hmm. I thought, yes, of course, we've compromised their future. We've actually been stealing it. Mm-hmm. But is it too late? Is there nothing that can be done? No, it's not too late. We've got this window of time. And so Roots and Shoots began with that message. Every one of us makes an impact every single day, and we have a choice. And because I learned in the rainforest that everything's interconnected, we decided right from the start, I mean me and the young people, 12 high school students in Tanzania, we decided that every group would choose 3 projects to make the world better. 1 to help people, 1 to help animals, 1 to help the environment that we all share. Mm-hmm. And so now, from those 12 high school students, we're ranging across the world. We have members in kindergarten, even some in preschool. We have very strong university level and everything in between. And I think it's growing so fast because it's not a top-down. The young people have a choice. And if you have a choice and then you're told, okay, work out, what can you do? And then you're empowered to take action. They're passionate. You know, it's something they care about and they want to work at it. And so if they're working on tree planting, for example, they're also listening to their fellow members who are working on raising money for refugees or earthquake victims or delivering food to soup kitchens, something like that.
Mm-hmm. So I also believe, like you, that change begins from within. and also with the young people. So is this why you work with the young people? Because you see you can make your movement stronger and you can create a change with the young people and the child to get more awareness into our society?
Yes, well, we have to work with the children. We find that the children are actually changing the behavior of their parents and grandparents. Now we've got our alumni, you know, they're already grown up, some of them in decision-making positions, and they take the values they learned in Roots and Shoots, basically respect for other people, respect for the environment, respect for other life forms. And so it's you have to work from the top as well. That's why I go to these big meetings and talk to heads of state and things like that. So you're working up from the bottom. At the same time, we can't afford to wait for the very young children to get to the top. So we must try and reach the hearts of those who have decision-making power right now.
Mm-hmm. I think this is hard work. And when I look at the dates, I see there are more than 5,800 projects worldwide since yet of Roots and Shoots, and more than 150,000 children and young people working with you in this project. It's really an amazing amount, I think. And there are also projects in the German-speaking countries, aren't they? Do you have a favorite project of Roots and Shoots, or is there just one actual you really love to, you want to share with us?
Well, it's so hard. I mean, there's so many amazing projects, and they're different, you know, that they grow in relation to the environment that the child is in, the age of the child, the socioeconomic status. But one story I love, because it's kind of symbolic, it was the first group to be formed in the Democratic Republic of Congo, the DRC. And the children decided that they wanted to put trees back on a hillside, which had been a sacred hill, but the trees had gone. And so it was clearly not something they could do. The hill was quite big, but to the children in the distance, it didn't look so big. So their mentor didn't want to disappoint them or damp their enthusiasm. So he got a forester friend to donate some saplings. Then he had to go to the resident militia, because this is the area which is mineral rich. And so there's always some group or other, and there's always fighting going on. Anyhow, so the commander of that group said, okay, it seems a stupid idea, but I suppose it's harmless, but I'll have to send soldiers with you. So the children with their mentors set off. There were 15 of them carrying their little saplings and something to dig with, and 4 big Congolese soldiers with AK-47 slung over their shoulder. And it was very hot and the distance was long. And when they got there, the children were exhausted. And the youngest was a girl of about 8, 10, something like that. And she couldn't dig the hole, even the ground was so hard, and she began to cry. After 10 minutes, one of the soldiers leaned his gun against a tree and went to help her. And within the next 15 minutes, all the soldiers were working with the children to plant trees. And to me, this is symbolic, because we're all about peace as well.
Yes, yes. It's a very, very good symbol. And I'm as a musician too, so I love symbols and all the signs you set in the world. You always say you're giving people hope. And this is also very interesting for me, because I did some analysis on this word hope. And for me, or maybe in our cultural society, we say hope is something for victims sometimes. So I have hope in this religious way, maybe. I hope for better days. I hope for better things. So I do nothing, but the hope in the really what it really means from the term is like you define it. But maybe we in our society don't use it this way. So we're more in the victim pose and not in this acting pose as you do. So I would love to know, how do you define this giving people hope? Because it's not being a victim and waiting for better days. Hope means you are the one who opens opportunities to other people. And maybe you can define, what does it really mean when you say your job is giving people hope? And this is what you're for what's your goal here with us?
Well, the thing is that if people don't have hope, they give up. And if people, you know, so many people, they look around at the harm we're doing to the planet, which is huge. And it's grim and gloomy. And the media is full of this kind of news. And so people just feel helpless and hopeless. And what can I do? I'm one person. So they do nothing. That's the danger. And so when I meet these people, and somehow if they come to a lecture or read a book, they feel differently. They come and tell me after the lecture, I had lost hope, but now I promise you I'll do my bit. So what's the secret? The secret is just stop thinking globally. Just think about where you live. What could you do to make a difference? What bothers you most? Is it plastic bags lying around in the street? Well, start a campaign. Is it, I don't know, whatever it is. Find something to do and do it with a group of friends, preferably. And then you see, yes, I can make a difference. This stream was all cluttered up with trash, but we've cleaned it. So the water flowing into the river is now clean. And then you realize, well, there's lots of other people doing this. And then you dare to think globally, because it's not just you, it's you, more and more people who become inspired by what you do. So you get more hopeful and you inspire hope in others. And so it spreads. And the more hopeful you are, the harder you work, the more hope you inspire. It's a spiraling thing, and it works. I mean, I only say that because people tell me all the time. I get messages almost every day. Thank you for giving me hope to carry on.
Yes.
So I just wish the media would spend more time talking about giving space to the incredible projects around the world that are making a difference, the amazing people. You know, this would really give more people the inspiration to take hopeful action.
Yes, that's a good point, but I think this change, to get this change is really a hard point, but I think we can work on it. So we are here, the group of marketing and sales experts, so maybe we have an influence on this. I want to go to this point you said before, this interconnection, this holistic approach to see everything belongs to another. And so we cannot separate humans from animals, from plants, the environment, and so on. So we are interconnected. And I think there are some things that go through media which we are aware of. And one thing is, I think almost everybody is aware of, is if bee disappeared off the surface of the planet, man would only have 4 years left. I think everybody has heard this. If the bees are not here on the surface, we have a problem. But what does it really mean? What happens if there are no more bees or chimps or other species? So why is this relevant for us humans if a species disappears from this planet?
Well, you picked one species, which the answer is very obvious. Bees pollinate, and bees pollinate our food. And you can't imagine enough food being grown to be hand pollinated. So bees actually are important, but let's take another species that doesn't seem important at all. We talk about biodiversity, and that simply means the animals and plants living together, making up an ecosystem. I like to think of it as the tapestry of life, because that's more poetic. So, okay, each species is a thread in that tapestry. So one little species disappears, doesn't seem to matter, but maybe it was a major food source of another species. So that will go extinct, and each time there's an extinction, a thread is pulled from the tapestry. And this can have a ripple effect. It's happened. And so many threads will get pulled from that ecosystem that the ecosystem will collapse. And so every little species has a role to play in this amazing tapestry of life, just like every human being has a role to play.
Therefore, there's a question in me, because does it then really mean we have lost connection to all these things? What do you mean? What does it need to have this change to see it's really important to look for all the species because we are interconnected. No species is irrelevant. What does it need? What does it take? Or what do you do to get this awareness to the people?
Well, you know, the main thing is, and we should have learned this from the recent pandemic, I hope, that, as you say, everything's interconnected. And the main thing is we are not separate from the natural world. We're part of it. Not only are we part of it, but we depend on it. We depend on it for clean air, clean water. We depend on forests and oceans to regulate the temperature, the climate. Mm-hmm. And it's by our disrespect of animals and nature that we brought this terrible pandemic on ourselves. It's our fault. And, you know, we disrespect animals, hunt them, eat them, move deeper and deeper into their habitats, force them into closer to us. And we capture them, we traffic them around the world, we sell them in horrible, cruel, cramped, unhygienic conditions in wildlife markets in Asia, Africa, Latin America. We have animals, domestic animals, crowded into these terrible factory farms, also mostly unhygienic. And so we're creating opportunities for a pathogen, such as a virus or a bacteria, to jump from an animal to a person, where it may bond with a human cell and create a new disease. And so COVID-19 happens to be very contagious, and it happens to have spread rapidly. The next one, if we don't start mending our relationship with animals, it could be worse. It could be like Ebola, because COVID-19 is very infectious, but the death rate compared to the number of people getting sick is low. Ebola is not so infectious, but the death rate is high, the percentage. So imagine another pandemic which combines the two, you know, the contagious aspect with the death aspect, and it would be much worse.
Mm-hmm. I think this is a very important point you tell here, because I think we don't think about it. This is called a zoonosis. If the virus comes from the animal to the people. I want to go back to 1986 because I think this is also a very good point where this is what you told now is coming up to this. So 1986, when you told about the animal markets, you changed your life and you attended an animal market, and you told before. What happened 1986? I think you mentioned it, but this was the turning point from becoming, or from being a scientist to becoming an activist. What happened?
Well, it was a conference that I helped to set up in America. And by that time, there were about 7 different field study sites of chimps in Africa. When it began, it was just me. And so we brought for the very first time the scientists who were studying chimps across Africa. We brought them together. And it was mainly to see, how does chimp behavior change, if it does change, in different environments? But we also had a session on conservation and conditions in some captive situations. And it was shocking. I mean, seeing right across Africa, chimp numbers dropping, the beginning of this bushmeat trade in the markets, the commercial hunting of wild animals for food, and seeing our closest living relatives in medical research labs in 5-foot by 5-foot cages. Mm-hmm. And so I just simply knew I had to try to do something. I didn't know what to do, but with forests disappearing, chimp numbers dropping, chimpanzees being tortured, and I'd spent my life studying them, how could I not try to do something? So that's when I changed.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you also thought you are a very shy person. I listened to a Hopecast of you, where you told little stories of your childhood. And this is also amazing. You were very shy. You were not the person, the storyteller. You're now a speaker. So I think or maybe you can tell us something about this, how this felt for you when you became from the scientist out of the jungle, going up on the big stages, and tell your stories. How was this change in your life? How did it feel?
Well, it's due to a gift that I was given of communication. I knew I had the gift of writing. I'd always written from a very young child. I've even got a story I wrote when I was 5 that I dictated to my mother. But then when I was told I had to give a speech, I was so terrified. And I swear that for the first few minutes, I couldn't breathe. I mean, if you know that feeling when you're really
I know it.
So I was absolutely terrified. But then, you know, suddenly I found, well, actually, I can do this. I can do it. And people were listening and people were applauding. And so from there on, I mean, of course, I worked at it, but that gift was there all the time. I take no credit for the gift. But as I say, I did work on it. And when I had to give this first talk, I practiced it at home with my long-suffering family. And I said to them, you know, I'm going to make 2 vows. I'm never going to read a speech, and I'm never going to say and Well, of course, I said then on purpose. Of course, I sometimes say and but basically, if you listen, you won't hear me saying and because it's very irritating when people say every few words. And as for reading speeches, I've never, ever read a speech in a live audience. Occasionally when I'm doing something virtual, it's so different. I mean, you don't get any feedback, and you're given a certain length of time. I've got an internal sense of timing, but anyway, so that's how it happened. And gradually, you know, when people began recognizing me and saying, oh, can I have a selfie, or can you sign my book? I hated it.
Yes.
I really hated it. I used to wear dark glasses. I hid from journalists.
Yes.
But then I realized, oh, this is stupid. I'm trying to make change. There's no point not making use of this recognition. So every time somebody does that, they get a little brochure. They're told about roots and shoots, or how they can join JGI. And so it spreads, you see.
Yes. Thank you for this lovely story. It's really, really nice, because there are some speakers here in our audience too, and I think everybody of us knows this feeling. But I'm also a very shy guy, I confess. But I learned also to speak on the big stages. And what we can learn from you is really you're a great storyteller. And I was in some lectures of you when you attended or when you visited Austria, and I really loved it. And my first time was when Doris called me and said, hey, you bought the first ticket of the lecture of Jane Goodall, and so you get a meet and greet with her. And it was, oh my God, I can meet Jane Goodall. It was really great to see. I think you don't remember me, but maybe you do. And it was really amazing. And I couldn't say a sentence when I met you. It was really amazing. And I have this book here. So you hated to sign books, I know, because you're shy. But you wrote in this book, and I remember it and I love it, is For Charlotte, Follow Your Heart, Jane Goodall. And it's really amazing for me, and thank you for this. And I was in a lecture, and it's an amazing experience. So I hope that everybody of us can join a lecture of you in the future too. And as you said, COVID-19 and all these virtual things changed it. So the next big milestone in your life was the COVID-19 pandemic, when you were grounded to your family home where you are now. And how was it if you're not in this relationship to the people anymore and in this connection? Maybe it's nice because you sit at home and you don't have to connect with the people you don't want to see. But I think you want to connect because it's your new personality, maybe. How do you do this to get this relationship to the people? And I think you work more than ever before, you said. In the past, before you were traveling 300 days a year. And now you're here in Bournemouth and you sit there and you work more than ever before. So How is it for you? How do you work? What changed in the last 12 months?
Well, everything changed because I couldn't travel anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to think that traveling like that was really hard work, but I look back on it, it was a piece of cake. It was so easy compared with what I'm doing now. Because I'd go, for example, I'd come to Austria and I'd be there, well, 4 or 5 days, something like that. And so each day we tried to limit it to maximum two big events, sometimes just one. And I was there, I was in Austria, dealing with Austria. Now I'm here. So every single day I can be in 5 or 6 countries all around the world. And at first I was frustrated and angry. And I have to say, I really miss going to places because I've made so many friends around the world. And, you know, I miss like giving a lecture virtually, which is what I've had to learn to do. Instead of getting feedback, you know, people laugh when you say something funny and you see their eyes watering when you show something sad video. So you get no feedback. So you're just sitting up here in my little attic room, gazing at this little camera spot in the top of my laptop. It's difficult. It's not easy. I had to, you know, if I'm going to do it, my mother taught me, do it properly. So I really, really work to get the same enthusiasm and spirit into these virtual lectures. And apparently it's working.
What's the secret? How do you do this? What's the secret to get this spirit in the lectures, in the virtual lectures?
Determination. I mean, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it properly. So work at it. Come on, pull yourself together. Never mind the people aren't actually visible to you. Imagine them, think about them. Think that you've got to get this message across and you can't get it if you're sort of boringly sitting and reading some kind of lecture. It doesn't work. So these virtual lectures I do, I'm not reading them and they're all different. And it's just a question of doing what you have to do, doing it as well as you possibly can.
I think there are more things you did in the last 12 months. You said you became virtual Jane, not only because you sit before the screen or the camera. What is virtual Jane about? There are some things you did in getting the connection to the people. What is virtual Jane?
Well, virtual Jane, the silver lining of it is that I've apparently been able to reach not what I thought, hundreds of thousands more people this way, but I'm told millions. And the social media following has gone skyrocketing up to, I think it's more than 9 million now globally. In many, many more countries. During this pandemic, we started JGI Roots and Shoots in India. It's a brand new, and it was rushing across the country, but of course the pandemic, it's awful there now. We started a very flourishing new group in Turkey. And that was started by a young woman who got her initial training in Roots and Shoots in Austria, actually. And so we were starting one in Israel, and then the nastiness that's just recently erupted again between Palestine and Israel has put that on hold, but it will happen. So that's why I say we need one now in Palestine, and then we need to bring the two together. So wishful thinking, if you don't aim for the stars, you might get to the moon. If you only aim for the moon, you might get to the top of Everest. So aim for the stars. We get Roots and Shoots in Israel and Palestine, India and Pakistan. And we'll change the world because not me, the youth, the JGIs, all the amazing people, as you mentioned, who are working with us, many of them as volunteers. And it's changing the world. It literally is changing the world for the better.
Yes, hopefully. Jane, I think you're a real icon. You're a role model, a real influencer in this new marketing speech. When we look at your website, there is this hashtag #BeJane, join the movement. And This B chain, what is it about? Just hashtag B chain. I think it's to call the people, be like Jane Goodall, try to be a part of this movement. Can you tell us some things about this B chain movement and what is it about?
Well, I didn't start it. You know, things are happening in my institutions that I don't know about, because how can I keep track of all of them? But basically, you know, Me Jane is about, well, I think the first was about the animal trafficking. Doris would know more than me about that. Mm-hmm. But basically, it's Me Jane. Jane tackled the impossible and wouldn't give up. So let's all try and do something like that about something that we're passionate about.
Mm-hmm. The claim of B Chain is we make a difference, be there, be the change you wish for the world. And I have a short video that I have from your website too. So please, could you show us the video?
My name is Jane Goodall. My name is Jane Goodall. My job is giving people hope. This planet has filled me with the wonder of all living things. If we keep our eyes open, our ears open, and think of every day as an adventure, then each day will give us a lesson. Every individual matters. Every individual has a role to play, just like the species in the rainforest. And every single individual, every one of us, makes some impact on the planet every single day. And we have a choice as to what kind of impact that we will make. Please join us in celebrating a dream and a vision which together we can make reality.
Yes, you see some people here on our island in Germany. Jane, for me and for us, the Club 55, the European Community of Marketing and Sales, you are an icon and a really strong personal brand. And I think what we can learn from you is so much, but you have to have a dream. This is what I take out of your lifetime story. And you have to follow your beliefs. And you can only understand and make a change if you capture all the aspects. So you have this holistic and the interconnected thinking. And you led us the way, but we have to act now. And this is the message, I think. And so you have me already as a big and loyal follower. And I hope there are more followers now here coming up after the
Sounds like it.
I hope you can see us all here on the islands.
I heard as well.
Yes. So thank you so much for what you have done and what's coming up over the next, I guess, at least 20 years. So I hope you have a very long life, because it's so important to have you here on this planet. You're very, very amazing earthling, and I really love what you do. And I'm a big follower. So applause to the amazing Dr. Jane Goodall.
Dear Dr. Jane Goodall, dear guests, dear colleagues, I have a dream. These are not only Martin Luther King's words, it is also what makes a great woman stand out, who took the risk at a young age to watch wild chimpanzees alone in the jungle. It was her discoveries that redefined the image of humans. That was 60 years ago. A lot has happened in her life since then, but one thing has always remained the same: her irrevocable passion to stand up for animals, the environment, and people, in order to preserve them in her individual way. One might think that the name Jane Goodall says it all: Jane the Merciful, and good all. The merciful who sees the good in everything, and that is what she actually does. She does not point a finger at others, but make them learn to understand get closer to the root of the problem and thus changing the course in order to enable new solutions. This amazing woman is a real change maker. Her Roots and Shoots program changes lives, has been changing them for 30 years. In more than 5,800 projects in over 100 countries around the world. It is understandable that she was named UN Ambassador for Peace for her commitment to this program. The Templeton Prize, which she received this year, may well be regarded the crowning achievement on her work. This teaches and shows us that we all can be role models for the children from whom we did not borrow this planet, but as she says, stole it. It is high time to support the movement and to set an example. #BeJane shows us that this name stands for something really big, for values, for an attitude, and for change. It is a purpose that drives its founder and her followers. Usually, one doesn't talk about a woman's age, but regarding Jane, I do it with utmost respect and admiration. Jane Goodall turned 87 this year. And since the pandemic, she's been working more than before. Why? Because the time window in which we have the opportunity to change our destructive behavior is closing. And that is what drives her. This is the reason why she still has a lot to do. Her job is giving people hope. And that does not mean waiting for a miracle to happen, but rather thinking matters into your own hands and showing ways to find solutions. We, CLUB55, are aware that a marketing and sales award might not have the highest priority. However, it is important to us, and we are aware that without marketing and sales, this movement, as we are experiencing it today, would not exist. And so our thanks and also the prize go to all those who made this possible around the personal brand Jane Goodall. All the employees in the 30 Jane Goodall institutes worldwide, the participants in the Roots and Shoots projects, and all the ambassadors and influencers who are behind Jane Goodall's work. Real change comes from within. Only if we understand will we care. Only if we care will we help. Only if we help shall all be saved. Your great social commitment and groundbreaking research are worthy of being honored. Your relentless urge to bring the good into the world and challenge everyone to be part of a change is touching and at the time admirable. Jane Goodall, you have created a life's work that is becoming increasingly relevant and reaching people all over the world. I hereby present the Lifetime Award for Outstanding Achievements on behalf of the CLUB55, the European community of experts in marketing and sales that have permanently changed the image of humans. Your consistency and determination to make a change, your social commitment in various areas of the world to help people getting back on their feet, Roots and Shoots programs, building a worldwide network, a movement that has now become a strong brand, the Jane Goodall Institute. Building up the Jane brand and creating strong connections, your personal commitment as an ambassador for change around the whole world. Ladies and gentlemen, the Lifetime Award 2021 of CLUB55 goes to Dr. Jane Goodall.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Stay healthy, and yes, you have a big followership now here in Germany and Austria and Switzerland. And we say thank you for your time, and I hope we will give you this lifetime award someday in person, in real, in the normal world and not in the virtual world. So see you soon, hopefully. Jane Goodall, and have a good day and a good life. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye to everyone.